In this tutorial, we start with the creative work on our mod map. Let's launch the Giants editor and open our map stored under Documents, My Games, Farming Simulator, Mods, My Mod Map, Map 01 i3D. First, let's take a look at how to edit the terrain. To do so, we open the terrain editing window from the Window menu. We can drag this window at the top by its name and drop it to another area of the editor or to an area completely detached from the main window. This is also true for many other windows in the Giants editor. Now let's find an area where we want to adjust the terrain, for example here near the city. If we switch on Terrain Sculpt mode up here, our cursor changes to a brush with an area of operation defined by the radius shown, marking which area of the terrain would be changed by pressing one of the three mouse buttons. We can see the settings of our brush in the terrain editing window, including the radius, opacity, and the hardness, as well as a global value which indicates how strongly the terrain will be changed. Beneath that, we can choose whether the brush is round or square, and what functions the mouse buttons perform. By default, the left mouse button is set to add, the right mouse button to subtract, and the middle mouse button to smooth. If we now paint on the terrain by left-clicking, the terrain is raised. The right-click lowers it, and we can smooth everything out by using the middle mouse button. The feature to replace a height value is also useful. This has the effect of setting the terrain to a predefined height and so is ideal for creating plateaus. To use this function, we first need to define the fixed height value we want. We do this simply by moving the cursor to a location with a desired terrain height. Now we press Ctrl-R and see that the replace value has been adjusted. Now we need to assign the replace function to a mouse button. Let's choose the middle mouse button and select Replace from the drop-down menu. Now if we paint using the middle mouse button, the terrain is raised or lowered to this level. We can also limit this effect. If we select Replace Limit, Lower, the terrain is only raised to reach the target height, but any higher terrain is no longer lowered. On the other hand, we can select Higher, and so the terrain will only be lowered, but any lower terrain will no longer be raised. Now we want to give the edited area different textures to give the floor a different color. To do so, we switch to the Terrain Detail Texture Paint mode up here. Then we can select the texture from the Texture Layer drop-down menu, for example, Rough Dirt. If we paint by left-clicking, this texture is applied. There's an important limitation when texture painting. If we zoom out a bit, we see these white lines on the terrain. These divide the terrain into so-called terrain chunks. A maximum of 4 textures can be used within one of these chunks, so we make sure to use textures sparingly. Once we are satisfied with our work, we save everything.